Welcome to another episode of Off the Rak. I'm Walt Rakwich, and I'm really grateful to have you here as we explore what it means to practice transformative leadership. I'm even more grateful to welcome today's guest, Tom Muccio, who has literally helped reinvent how retailers and their suppliers do business together. Tom spent 33 years at Procter & Gamble, rising from sales rep to president of global teams and president of the global Walmart team. In the late 80s, when retailers and suppliers often had adversarial relationships, Tom led a groundbreaking team that ushered in an era of collaboration with Walmart. P&G grew its share of the Walmart business from 3.5% to 16% over the next 20 years. By 2003, when Tom left to pursue other ventures, including his own consulting firm, P&G's business with Walmart literally had grown from $350 million a year to $8 billion a year. At that point, P&G's sales to Walmart alone would have ranked at 234 on the Fortune 500 list. How they did all that has been the subject of several case studies, including one from Harvard Business School. It's also the subject of Tom's new book, which is out this month, called Collaborative Disruption. Today, you're going to hear his approach to solving complex problems and being an agent of change when you face incredible resistance. And he definitely had some incredible resistance. You're also going to learn some Muccioisms to take home with you. So get a pen ready for those Muccioisms as we start this episode of Off the Rak. Hey, welcome, Tom. I'm thrilled to have you on the show today.
Well, it's an honor and pleasure, and I'm looking forward to it as well.
Well, me too. Really great to have you on. And, you and I both spent part of our careers in roles that required us to travel a little bit. And maybe we can, before we get into your career, I'm just curious, just as a little bit of a teaser here, what's your favorite trip you've ever been on? Where do you like to travel to?
Well, Maui had been my happy place for a number of years for my wife and I, and then for our family. And we still like to go back there. Unfortunately, with the big fire that they had, it's taken a little bit of the shine off, but it's still a great place to see the wonders of the Lord and be able to lean back, have some good food, and get some good rest.
Absolutely. Interesting you'd say that. I'm going to be going to Maui in a couple of months for a board meeting over there, and I'm really looking forward to getting back there. I've been there for a while. I was thinking about, I just loved taking my kids on a visit to Japan once, and watching them make fools out of themselves at a karaoke in front of my Prologis colleagues there. That was pretty epic, I have to admit. One of my favorite trips of all time. Hey, Tom, I want to start off with your tenure at Procter & Gamble.
Okay.
First of all, I understand that you had 16 positions. I'm going to re-say that, 16 positions during a 33-year tenure, which is, absolutely amazing. So your resume is kind of unusual these days. How many people do that? So, what do you think contributed to your longevity with the company?
Well, first of all, it's a great company with great products, and I had an incredible opportunity there to grow and to contribute. I had many challenging assignments that allowed me to broaden my skill sets. I worked with high quality people because we promoted only from within. So you knew that at every point in time, your boss had your job. And so that was great. And then I made great career progress, and I had the opportunity and good fortune to have a lot of people that I was able to help develop in the process as well. So I don't know how you could have gotten any better than that.
But for you, it kind of boiled down to people, though, didn't it?
Yes.
Well, and
opportunity. People and challenge. People and challenge.
Yeah. People and challenge. So, during your career, Walmart and P&G are two of the biggest, most successful companies in the world. today, and by the way, back then too. But although Walmart was much smaller when you first got started, but it's kind of odd to think that there was a time when Walmart wasn't a big player in retailing. I almost can't even remember that, or a time when both the companies didn't really work well together. So you were charged with repairing that relationship, making it work. Can you talk to listeners, give us a sense of what the companies were like back in the 80s, way
Okay.
back when, and then why was there a change needed?
Well, if I go back to like 86, 87, the retail environment was in a lot of disruption that was changing. The 5 and 10 cent stores were going away. There were only a few national companies, Sears and Penny's, but they didn't sell consumer products. But you had discounters popping up, super centers being tested, club stores just on the horizon, and that was a challenge to the conventional grocery stores that were regional or multi-regional and to the independents. So you had a lot of things that were changing in the market itself. You then had things like technology developing, which we hadn't had as much of in the past. Everything from computers to Blackberries to you name it was all new, or just getting really important in terms of how we go to market. And P&G had pretty much been, well, they were very, very successful, the most successful consumer product company in the world. But we had gone to market about the same way for the last 20 or 25 years. We were 8 different product divisions, pretty much autonomous. And while we had great product knowledge, we really were 8 different faces to the customer.
Yeah.
All the invoices said Procter and Gamble, but the policies between the companies or divisions were different. So it was very complicated for the customer to have to manage. And because we were big and successful, we're a little bit of a bully, and so. And because we had every one of those product divisions had a huge 400 or 500 person sales force that called in every retail outlet in the U.S. Our specialty, as a company, our strategic edge was market research to find out what people wanted, then product research and product development to create superior products, and then marketing to create the demand for everything from soap operas to, we were the largest TV advertisers, and basically our customers and the sales organization was much more of a tactical, that we really weren't considered as the strategic arm. We kind of we knew what we wanted to get done and how we wanted to get it done, and so that was that situation. Walmart at that time had this new fangled concept of everyday low priced, and that was not the way the business was being run. They were growing in size. At the time in 87, they were our 3rd largest customer, but they were in mostly rural markets, and while they were fast growing, they were located in Northwest Arkansas, and that was not someplace that we spent a lot of time in, actually, because we managed our market or our business by market. So Atlanta, New York, San Francisco, whatever, and then by customer. So this was, when you put all those factors together, the relationship between P&G and Walmart when we started was very adversarial. There was a winner and loser in every decision. It was very transactional and short term. It was very internally focused in both companies. We knew what we wanted to do, why we wanted to do it, how it benefited us, and we really didn't care what the impact was on the other party. And then we also, it was a buyer and seller only. You had all the resources in both companies to run their company, but it only came together as a buyer and a seller. So it was a very, it just well, Sam Walton used to say if the relationship was so bad, if he wanted to punish one of his buyers, he'd put him on the P&G business. Uh,
That's great. What a line. Now, did you? Me. I come from a supply chain. Well, we built Prologis built warehouses, but first thing I think about is you got the soaps, you got Tide, you got all the stuff that Procter and Gamble make. Did each one of those companies, if you will, product companies, did they all send stuff to Walmart in different trucks and all that? Did they have?
oh
Did
yeah,
they operate
different
separately
trucks.
in supply
Yeah,
chain as well?
yeah. The supply chain was different.
Yeah.
We were, yeah. I mean, in fact, one of my colleagues laughed and said P&G was a Mercedes that we broke up into 8 bicycles. Uh, so the ability to do search and reapply. The divisions didn't even really talk to each other very much. We
Yeah.
had big silos by division and pretty big silos in the functions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty dysfunctional relative
Right.
to how people act today. So so you changed that. You were asked to change that, and the legacy that you created at Procter and Gamble, P&G, fundamentally really changed the way that the company and frankly all the suppliers do business with retailers. I mean, um, I often talk about using positive influence to change a culture, but
Right.
how did you go about influencing incremental changes to get people to kind of let go of what they were doing for so long?
Well, we didn't allow it to be incremental change. We said this is breakthrough, and we basically when the two companies decided courageous leadership from both Sam Walton and John Smale, because it was not a popular concept in either company to make changes. Um, but Sam said, if you think of my stores as an extension of your company, we'll do business entirely differently. So I then came up with the concept saying, let's call it the one company operating model. We both understand we're separate companies, but to the extent we're working together, let's look at if we were one company, let's flow chart every process. And if we do something over here, maybe you don't need to do it over here,
Mm,
or whatever. And we looked at everything from what are the pain points we need to deal with, how can we do old work better, how can you do new work, how can we invent the future together. And so what we started with was a mirror team. We took a multifunctional approach, and we had resources that were a mirror function. So logistics with logistics, finance with finance. That was kind of our leadership team. We called it a mirror team, and that became kind of the board of directors of the relationship, at least initially. And then we went when we did a joint vision. The joint vision was the mission of the Walmart and P&G business team is to achieve the long-term business objectives of both companies by building a total system partnership that leads our respective companies and industries to better serve our mutual customer, the consumer.
mm,
So from there, we then said, okay, what are strategies that can play in both companies? So we had shared strategies. We put the relationship. We measured absolutely everything that was important in either
mm,
company, so that we had real data. And then communications was very important, because at P&G the divisions didn't want to give up control. Um, and and at Walmart, the they didn't think P&G would ever change, so they didn't really want to invest the time and effort. And a lot of the C-suite at P&G just didn't. Why do we need to do anything different? What we're doing is working just fine. So as we went through, we tried to be incredibly transparent in the communication. We invited any question you have, any concerns you have, any pushback you have. But if we answer that, you can't continue to be a loyal opposition and keep bringing it up and bringing it up if we can solve that for you. And then we really merchandise the results. And it was kind of like peeling an onion. because we didn't know what we didn't know. But with everything we did, we all of a sudden said, wow, look at this. I mean, we got another opportunity over here. So
Mhm.
it was one of those things that kind of became its own virtuous circle. And it went, and we laughed. The mirror team laughed that, if this wasn't supposed to work, they put the wrong people on the startup team, because we quickly said this could be a really big idea,
Yeah.
and so uh, we were very courageous, very resilient, and we did have a lot of opportunity to pick ourselves back up and keep trying.
So you basically kind of put both companies together as if it
Yes,
was one.
yes,
Right. I mean, I love Sam Walton's comment that, we're really an extension of you at the end of the
yeah,
day. The real customer's way out there. We're not really a customer. We're sort of an extension of you. You put the companies together.
right.
I'm curious. Did you have did you have to convince John Smale of this, or was he convinced in the first place, and Sam convinced, and you had to really convince everyone else below them?
Well, it's a really interesting story, because initially Sam was so desperate to try to get something done with P&G that he said to his buyers, "Does anybody have anything that we could recognize P&G for as one of our vendors of the year?" Someone came up with something, so Sam called John Smale's office, but his administrator wouldn't put him through, because our CEO didn't talk to customers, and she didn't know who Sam Walton was. So he
Okay.
got transferred down around the national sales managers. I was the national sales manager of food at the time, and he finally got frustrated and gave the award to somebody else. But these were in the days where total quality was the big idea, and we had Dr. Edward Deming had designed a program for P&G, and so what we did is we said, well, listen, I know you're upset with us, Walmart, but why don't you bring your executives up to Cincinnati, and we'll go through this total quality, and then you will know how, basically you'll know that our way is the best way. Well, at the end of the 3-day session, which was very atypical for Walmart to take 3 days in a building doing things, Sam stood up and said to John, "Let's do this thing." And John said, "Let's do what?" Sam says, "Let's do this total quality between our two companies." And basically, we had corporate ego on the line at that point. We had to do something. So the senior execs got together, and they basically, I had been part of a team that had come up with this recommendation of how to go to market differently, independent of Walmart. And they said, well, here's the only recommendation we have is this multifunctional thing, moving them down to Bentonville. And some of the sentiment was, it won't work, but we'll test it for a year, and at least we'll get credit for having tried something new. Well, at the end of the year, the results were fabulous, but the divisions were still pushing back. And John Smale, we were there presenting our year one report. We had blown away anything you could possibly consider as objectives. And we were getting hammered and hammered, but pushback about, well, you didn't do this or this. And when we were in one of the last divisions, John Smale had heard how we were getting punished. And so he slipped in the back of the room. And after listening for about 5 minutes, he stood up and said, I think the rest of this meeting would be a lot more productive if you decided how to better work together, because we're going to do this.
Oh,
And
that's
so
awesome.
he stood up and said, we're going to do it. And then so that extended the test to a way of going to market. And then from there, we had other customers who saying, well, what about us? We want to play too. So I was charged with going to like Target and Costco and others, presenting to their senior management, here's what we were doing, here's how we're doing it. But this is not something we do to you. This is something we do together. And here's what we require from you if you want us to put resources in. This is not give me heat and I'll put in a log. It's you put in the log and then you get the heat. So that's how it worked. And I didn't compromise anything from Walmart, obviously from confidentiality. So I was in charge of this from a process point of view rather than a content point of view to get it up and running, and then to help to grow the customer general managers that were going to take this around the world eventually.
Yeah, that's great, and we'll talk a little bit about, but obviously you had great success in it too. Um, so I want to turn a little bit from this, in creating this sort of collaborative change that you talk about.
Right,
You had to create some shared values within your team and probably within the Walmart team too,
right,
and that they sort of align together with Walmart's values and the like, right? Because they're your partner. Can
right.
you talk a little bit about, how you identified those values and sort of made them stick in your team's cultures, but also Walmart's team culture?
Well, that's a great question, because one of the things in the Mirror team got together, we were surprised at how the two companies' values were, even though we were operating way differently, our values were very similar. So then we said, okay, if we're going to go forward, we need to agree to operating principles between the Mirror team themselves. And then we said, okay, we got to take those principles and put them into values for our team. So what we did is my leadership team got together and we said, let's pretend we were starting our own company from zero. What values would we want to see? So we made a list of values and described what they would look like. Then we took all the members of our team and broke them into smaller groups and let them discuss it, ask questions, and so forth, brought all the input back together and put it together. And then what we ask is everybody we made it in a document, and everybody, you had an opportunity to sign it or not sign it. And then we framed those and gave everyone a copy, so that these were what we all had agreed to. Some of them were like high standard of performance, that we're going to be a recognition and reward based organization based on performance. We were going to act like owners. We're going to win as a team. There's no I in team. And then when we ever had new people join the team, we were very clear in there when they came for their look-see. We said, here's how we're running this. Here's how we're leading this team. If this fits with you, great. If it doesn't, we suggest you find another place to serve. And then my leadership team, we adopted servant leadership as our methodology for going to market, which combined the best of Walmart and the best of P&G. P&G was much more hierarchical. Walmart was much flatter organization. And it just, we as a leadership team said, our job is to turn the traditional model of leadership at the top upside down. So what we're doing is promoting and helping to remove roadblocks and help people achieve what they're doing. And then collectively, we'll have much more energy and much more breakthrough happening than if everything has to go through and get approved from a small group of us.
Yeah, what I love about what you just said, though, is that, when you created values, it really was not necessarily a top-down approach. It was just
Right,
what you did with P&G. I mean, with Walmart, it was a collaborative approach,
right,
right?
right,
So everybody in your team had to buy in,
right.
everybody in your team had to sign off, but also people in your team had the ability to create those values as well. And so it was sort of an iterative approach towards it all. I love that.
Yeah, and we also gave people the freedom. If any of us are behaving different than these values, you do us a big favor if you call it out. And there were times that that I got called out on something, and it was true, I would apologize or whatever. So that was what we tried to do, is really bring it to life and not make it just be something on the wall.
Yeah. So you were, if you will, getting back to the servant leadership side of it, you were serving each other
Right.
in,
Exactly.
in many respects, right?
Yes.
Um, yeah. Well, that's the way to create values. I mean, I don't believe that values created top down. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have created values over time, um, and they just don't live them out because
Right.
oftentimes they come from senior leadership, and the people down below are kind of saying, "Well, that's interesting. That's your values, but that's not necessarily ours."
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and you have to send deliberate signals. For instance, every time we had a record month, which was quite often, our leadership team would cook lunch for the rest of
Mm.
the team. We would bring in big barbecue grills and and do that. I saw something that Dan Cathy did, the CEO of Chick-fil-A, at a conference that I went. He had a shoe brush, and he had people come up and he basically shined their shoes. And so we took that, and I did that on our team. I had shoe brushes made with said Walmart Global Customer Team. And I first brought my leadership team up, got on my knees, brushed their shoes, gave them a brush. They then went and did that with their team. And eventually everybody got a brush and were able to but it was symbolic of, we win as a team. And so it's very powerful. And the beauty of it is, that was the first 15 years of starting as pioneers, but this relationship has now been going for 35 years.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. In fact, I saw some place where you increased your sales with Walmart from like 3.5% of their sales to 16%, and when you left, it was something like you had gone from 350 million to 8 billion or
Yeah,
something like
it started to be real money where I grew up.
real money where you grew up. Where I grew up was real money as well. Yeah, so no, that's just. By the way, did you keep those shoe brushes on your desks, or kind of keep them around so
Some
everybody
people
was
did, and we
reminded?
then built a kind of an archive. I mean, it was a
Yeah,
moment in time, and we didn't redo it for new people who came in and whatever. But there's still a lot of that original team that were there that still have them and have them proudly on their desks wherever they're working. So
that's great. That's
yeah,
great. Hey Tom, let's turn to your new book. It's
yes.
called Collaborative Disruption. I love both of those words, but can you tell us how you arrived at that title and kind of what you hope readers can gain from it?
Sure. Well, the title itself is descriptive. I mean, it was disruptive because it was game changing. Nobody had ever done something like that, at least at the supplier retailer level. And collaborative is because we did it together. So it wasn't so as I described with the mirror team. And why I did it, people have been trying to get me to do this, write the book since I retired in 2003. I had two or three false starts. It just was too hard. I had other things on the go, but I finally agreed to it because I think it's a story that needed to be told. I needed to highlight the courageous leadership at the top of both companies and the amazing accomplishments of over 35 years of thousands of folks in P&G and G and Walmart. And particularly the book focuses on those first 15 years because those pioneers really we were going on dirt path, not 4-lane highways. uh, and there were so many amazing accomplishments, both business and personal growth. Um, and so that was the why I wanted. I just felt it was one of those stories that had to be told because it was important for both companies. Not that they weren't going to be successful without it, but I think it turbocharged the growth of both companies as well as changing the industry. So my audience, I really kind of thought about. There were five audiences I was thinking about. One was the C-suite because I wanted to challenge C-suite. There is an opportunity for better results in a really broad area by working collaboratively with your strategic customers and suppliers. I think it goes in both directions. Then I wanted another group were team leaders, and I wanted to provide some proven ideas, processes, suggestions for them. For aspiring leaders coming up in the organization, it was about bringing together some leadership lessons and ways how they could continue to grow and contribute. Then the fourth area was anybody who's interested in business history, because just like the assembly line was a big idea when Ford did that, and it changed manufacturing, in many respects, this is that kind of a business history epic moment. And
Yeah.
then lastly, I wanted it to be a good read, an enjoyable read. So if you picked it, if you liked the cover and you bought it at the airport and read it on the plane, you wouldn't be disappointed.
Well, and also all of this is part of a Harvard Business School case study. Am I right?
Right, right.
Yeah. So Tom, when's it out?
It gets released Friday,
Okay.
and November 1st. And so, yep.
Well, I wish I had it in my hand, but I actually cannot wait to read it. I think it's going to be absolutely groundbreaking, really, and what you guys did. And by the way, there were a number of suppliers that then came after you, like thousands of them, that
Yeah,
actually located to Bentonville
yeah,
and
yeah.
started doing the same thing, right?
Well, yeah, and now it's also, you find the same thing at Target, the same thing at Costco, same thing at Kroger. I mean,
Yeah.
so this became a multi. What we did is change it from just being buying and selling to multifunctional interaction, that allowed for we were able to invent industry standards that made benefit for everybody. We were able to share. Each company has something they do better than someone else, and then you were able to put that together, and you get the synergy that would come from expertise. You were also hopefully building trust, because there's nothing like the speed of trust for innovation. If you trust me, you're willing to go a little faster. And it's trust but verify, obviously, as Reagan said, but
Yeah.
trust gets you moving a lot faster.
It sure does. And think about, frankly, how you've held down prices at all these places, not
Right.
just P&G, but all these suppliers by collaborating and, in essence, becoming more efficient over the
Yep.
years. Okay, so Tom, again, I'm going to shift gears a little bit because I love talking about people. And Sam Walton is a real icon, obviously.
Yes.
You, I'd like to hear, what's maybe your favorite story about your interactions with him, kind of how he influenced your leadership, that type of thing.
Well, it was amazing. I was so fortunate. I got to fly with him, store checking on 2 or 3 times, get on his plane. He would fly. And the first time he just would barely get off the ground. He put it in autopilot and turned to me and said, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" Which was kind of a scary experience. And every time we were together, he would ask me for money for lunch. He'd only eat a bowl of soup. And I said to him after the 3rd time, "I now know why you're the richest man in the world. You never carry any money." And but the biggest lesson I got from him was when I said to him, "Sam, we're doing these store checks and we go into why do you spend so much time in stores, number one? And number two, why do you spend so much time talking with the associates in each of these stores?" And he said, "Well, I spend time in the stores because that's where the customers are."
Yeah.
That made sense. And then he said, "And the reason I spend so much time with the associates they're the ones that take care of the customer. And I want to make sure that I'm hearing what they have to say." And I mean, Walmart was incredible. Instead of calling it their headquarters, it was their home office. So it was, that was a totally, vocabulary makes a difference. They called it the home office rather than most companies call it their headquarters. Okay.
Right.
And when I'm on the subject of vocabulary, many consumer product companies, they call Walmart was an account. And I said, "Wait a minute, time out. I have an account at the bank, but I'm a customer." When you say customer, it puts up a whole different frame of mind. Walmart and a lot of the retailers call us vendors. And when I hear the word vendor, I think of my fraternity house where we had an old Coke machine that you put your money in and gave it a forearm shiver. and you'd always get your Coke, but sometimes you get your money back as well. But so vocabulary, language really does make a difference.
It does make, isn't that the truth? I don't know if you know, but earlier this year we had Mike Duke, who was a former CEO of Walmart,
Oh,
on.
what a terrific guy.
He was on this show, and much of what you talk about with Sam, just leading by the customer, focus on the customer, but also his people. I mean,
Right.
Mike was so focused. He's such a people guy.
Yeah,
So focused on his
he
people.
was. I enjoyed working with him and seeing. I worked with him in a number of roles as he grew up to the organization through the organization. Yeah,
Oh no, he's terrific,
class guy.
yeah, you should go back and listen to that interview of Mike and I. It was he did just a wonderful, wonderful job.
I'll do that. I definitely will do that.
All right, Tom. So look, you've become known for your Muccioisms, which is a language that could provide a shorthand for folks and kind of
Right.
help them to visualize an approach to solving a problem, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
can you humor me? And I'm going to do a rapid fire, and I want
Okay.
you to just tell the audience what each of these sayings mean. And by
Okay.
the way, there are hundreds of these, but I just picked a few of them out. So
Okay.
you give me the definition. Okay, first, a breath and a candy mint.
Well, that was the idea. Was can you get two things done with achieving one goal? So maybe there was a way I could increase sales and lower cost, the same thing. So it was a breath mint and a candy mint.
All right, Bambi in the front of a Peterbilt.
Well, it was our version of a deer in the headlights. And because we were doing so much with logistics, Peterbilt, someone came up with that. And I just thought, well, that's our own version.
Yeah, I can relate to that as a supply chain guy. All right, everybody brings a hammer.
Yeah, well, in many organizations, everything is specialized. What we wanted on our team was if you see something that's broken, fix it. If you can fix it, fix it. Don't wait for someone else. Don't write a note and saying, I saw a piece of paper on the floor, call the janitor. Or if you took the next to the last cup of coffee out of, make another pot. So it was part of the values and the culture that we wanted to have. You did what you could do when you saw something that needed to be done.
I love that. Take responsibility. If you want to take credit for the sunshine, you need to be responsible for the rain.
Right. Well, in any organization, when you're successful, the leadership gets more than their fair share of credit. So what I believed was I should take less than my fair share of credit and more of my responsibility, more for any shortcoming. And that's what I tried to impart with our leadership team. That's how we make progress. Is not thinking too highly of ourselves and making sure that we run cover for the organization and we take the hits. We can, it's now that didn't mean we didn't have tough conversations with people. I mean, we weren't running a country club, but it's like probably, my dad used to say, nobody else corrects my son. I'm the one, you can tell me the problem and I will do the correction. So as a leadership team, we tried to run cover for the organization from getting rained on from above.
That's your job as a leader. There's no
Right.
question in my mind. Okay, what's a swamp in your world?
Well, a swamp was the bureaucracy that was constantly fighting for maintaining the status quo. And what I used to say is, if you want to marry the princess, you got to kill the dragon. And so I found that there were 5 dragons that we had to face. One was, I called it corporate fog, which was that senior executives in an organization have no idea really what it's like to be a customer or supplier of their organization. And as a result, I also make the joke, if they had to be a customer of themselves, one of their priorities might be to find another supplier. And then the people in the middle of the organization are waving their hands, they're doing the work, and they're saying, I got pain points, I'm missing opportunity, but the fog is so thick in between the levels so that's a dragon. And this other one, this is not, I think Trump took it from me, which was the deep state, which were in the P&G world was those were the different 8 different groups. Then you had the swamp, which was the bureaucracy. No, that's not the way we do things. No, no, we can't change that. We can't change that. Then there's the Flat Earth Society, because they, like Columbus, you're going to fall off the end of the world here. We've seen the map; it's flat.
Yeah.
And so what you're proposing will never work. And then there's the loyal opposition, that regardless of what you do, they're picking at it. Well, yeah, you may have done this, but look at over here. And so those were the dragons that we had to kill in both companies. And I've seen that as a consultant repeated over and over in companies. It's almost universal.
Yep. No, there's no question about it. It's just opposition to doing many times the right thing. And last but not least, you can't have a war story if you don't go to war.
Well, yeah. If it was easy, everybody would already be doing it. So you're going to be having to fight battles. You're going to have courage, resilience. You're going to have to make some sacrifices on various things. You might, but that's what gives you, when you do have the success, that's the war story that you get to have. But you have to been in the war, otherwise you don't get it.
Those are So, Tom, those are great. I mean, sometimes I think communicating simple sayings that people can relate to are not just funny, but they kind of bring people together.
Well, and you were right initially. It's shorthand. What happened is that we would just talk to each other in shorthand, and we knew, and it communicated. It played well.
Yeah. You know what? It comes to my mind at my former company, in order to keep things kind of light in those times when we didn't quite hit it out of the park, our CFO used to always quote Mick Jagger by telling us, "You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you just might find you get what you need." Anyway, it's kind of fun to rally around those things, right?
It certainly is.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, my last question. I got to ask everybody in my interviews about gratitude. I'm just a big believer in gratitude. I kind of feel like the people that I love the most are the people that are gracious about everything, even when things aren't going right for them. What are you most grateful for today?
I'm most grateful for my personal relationship with Jesus Christ, my Savior and my Lord, and the fact that not only has that been personal to me, but He has given me the ability to see that in my son and daughter and their husbands, my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. And I think, I don't know how I could be any happier or any proud for being able to see that and live it myself.
Wow, that's powerful. Hey, Tom, I just want to thank you. I'm grateful that you're on the show. And I really want to just thank you for joining me on this episode of Off the Rak. This has just been awesome. And some of your sayings they just go down in history. They're just fabulous. So thank you again for being here.
Absolutely. My honor and my pleasure. And it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed this very much.
And I also would like to thank all of you who tuned in today. Look, you can always find more insights about our guests through the Off the Rak Plus newsletter. We got episodes, highlights, transcripts, takeaways, everything you're going to want to see there. And I'd like everybody to tune in next month when the consultant and founder of The Soul Purpose and Living Life on Purpose, Tina DeSalvo, she's going to join us. She works with many of the business sector's largest companies and their leadership teams. And leaders who work with her say that she makes it faster and easier to speak the truth, to name the issues, and call out behaviors that clog potential. And so we're going to find out why she's fondly called a trusted advisor, but also called a corporate Yoda. So stay tuned for more details closer to the interview. And until then, I'd encourage all you to be human with one another and find a way to have a positive influence on somebody each and every day. Thank you, everybody.